Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is fighting different enemies at different locations. Now this one's going to be a fairly simple thing to do. If we go into our enemies table and into the structure of it, we just need to add another field on and just name it location and leave it as an integer with an unsigned attribute. And if we go over to browse, currently we've got the original 5 enemies, and I'm just going to give them all a location of 1. So all of these enemies are located in the small town. Now we need to start adding new enemies for the different places that a player can travel to. So if we open up our locations, as you can see here, we've got the small town that's filled with the blobs. We've also got dark forest to do, the big city, hazy swamp, and frozen desert. So for the, I think I'll do the big city next. The enemies inside the big city there probably wouldn't be too many tough enemies in there, since it's big. It's a big city and there's probably going to be a lot of defense. So I'll put in 1, maybe 2 enemies for this. Okay, so I've added 2 extra enemies here. We've got a giant rat and a mental chicken, and I've given them the location of 3, and you will see in the locations that 3 location ID of 3 equals the big city. So I'm going to go through and just fill in the last remaining 3, just add a couple of enemies to them locations. Right, so I've added enemies for the remaining areas. We've got a hallow tree and a forest pixie for the dark forest. I've put a swamp rat and sludge for the hazy swamp, and right at the the strongest enemies, we've got a desert elf and a living cacti, which reside in the frozen desert. So we're going to go back to our script and we'll go to the fight database, the fight.php script, and this is going to be simple change. We're just going to add a where clause into this query. I'm just going to say where location equals user location ID. So that's the only thing we need to do to that script. So we'll come over to our game and we'll go fight. Excuse me here. Right. So we go fight, and we get the swift blob. And no matter what we fight inside while we're in the small town, we will always be restricted to the blobs. So we travel to a new place and we'll travel to the hazy swamp and we'll go fight there, and we're now attacking the sludge. Something's wrong with the EXP because we're not levelling up. Okay, I'll investigate that in a second. And we go fight, and we're now fighting the swamp rat. He gained a level. How comes we... Bizarre. Right. Okay, so you can now see that by changing our location, it changes what we encounter when we come to fight. Just by simply adding that extra field onto the database, onto the table of location, and specifying what locations these enemies can be found. It also means that you can have another enemy with exactly the same name, but you can make it a bit tougher as well. So that's all we need to do for the enemies at different locations. I'm just going to pause the video for a minute, and I'm going to look into the levelling up on here and see what went wrong. Okay, I couldn't find what was going wrong with the what went wrong with the experience. It hasn't seemed to have happened again. But one thing I did realise was this part here. The attack equaled the row with user strength. So, and the defense was the user enemy defense. So the calculations for us attacking the enemy have been wrong. So, if you've copied my code exact, then you need to swap the user and the row round at these lines here, just after the else if get action equals attack statement. Right, so moving on to the next part, which is different shop locations. And again, this is just going to be a simple case of going into shops, adding a field on the end and just calling it location, leaving it an integer, an unsigned attribute, and save it. Excuse me. So we need to come in here and just edit these to give them their location. And we'll just leave this like it is for now, because the only two places we can go is between the hazy swamp and the small town. Oh, and the dark forest now. Why can I go to the frozen desert? Ah, of course, leveled up high enough. So yeah, what I'll do is we'll just leave. I won't add any more shops. So we've got the 4 shops here. Now we go back to our script and we'll just go to the shop.php page, and where we are echoing out the list of shops, we're just going to add that statement in again, where location equals the user location ID. So that will list out all the shops that we're able to see. We also want to add this onto any other queries where we're querying against the shops table. Again down here, and this is just to stop any foul play by users. Player items from game items, set players, shops. And I think that is it from game items, players. Yep, so we can save that and we come back over to the game. We're currently in a small town, so our shop is, we can see our shop, or all the shops. Hold on. Online's 162, which is this one here. Oh, on that one we're actually querying the game items, so we don't need it there, but we still need it up there. There we have it. So now if we go to, right, remember we've got a variable up here with visit. So if we travel to a new place and we just go to the hazy swamp and we'll go to shop, there's no shops. Even if I add visit, it comes up with no shop found because there's no shop with our location ID. So you need to always look out for these sorts of things and make sure you're protected against any foul play that players might try. So I think that's it for this part. In the next part we're going to look at upping the ante when it comes to fighting. We'll probably scrap all of the or most of the fight mechanics we currently have. We're going to add in 3 new stats. We're going to have speed, dexterity and accuracy. We might look at adding levels to enemies and finding somewhere to adjust an enemy's stat depending on their level. Maybe, I don't know yet. And then we're going to look at adjusting the battle mechanics. So join me in the next part, and until then, have fun.